Shocking mail reveals my wife cheated for 24 years and the heartbreaking truth about our daughter. The letter arrived on an ordinary Tuesday. I almost tossed it aside, thinking it was another bill or advertisement. But something about it made me pause. My name was handwritten across the front. No return address. No markings except for a single stamp in the corner. Curiosity 1. I tore it open. Inside was a DNA test result. My hands trembled as I unfolded the paper. My eyes scanned the words, my mind struggling to process what I was seeing. My daughter. The little girl I had raised, loved, and protected for 24 years. She was not mine. My chest tightened. The room seemed to tilt. I read it again, hoping I had misunderstood. But the truth was there, written in black and white. Then, a second wave of horror hit me. If she was not mine, then who was her real father? A dark suspicion crept in. My wife. The woman I had trusted with my entire life. Had she been lying to me all these years? I needed answers. And I was not ready for the truth I was about to uncover. For 25 years, I believed I had built the perfect life. I had a stable job, a loving wife, and a daughter who meant everything to me. My days followed a routine I found comfort in, waking up early to prepare coffee, reading the newspaper before work, and spending my evenings unwinding with my family. I was not the type to chase excitement or question things unnecessarily. If something seemed fine on the surface, I accepted it. Lisa, my wife, had always been independent. We met in college, drawn to each other despite our differences. She was ambitious, social, and full of energy, while I was more reserved, content with simple pleasures. I never doubted our love, nor did I ever suspect that there were hidden cracks in our marriage. Sure, there were moments when she seemed distant, trips she claimed were for work, hushed phone conversations, and times when she would suddenly pull away emotionally. But I convinced myself that it was normal. That relationships had their ups and downs. Emily, our daughter, was my pride and joy. The day she was born was the happiest day of my life. Holding her tiny body in my arms, I made a silent promise that I would always be there for her. She was my motivation for everything. Watching her grow into a bright, strong young woman filled me with immense pride. I worked hard to ensure she had every opportunity in life. And she, in return, made me feel like the best father in the world. But the comfortable life I had known was about to unravel. It started with a letter. A simple envelope in my mailbox, with no return address. I remember the uneasy feeling in my stomach as I tore it open. The words inside changed everything. They shattered the foundation of my marriage, my family, and the life I thought I had. The letter revealed that Lisa had been cheating on me for 24 years. Almost the entirety of our marriage. But the worst part? It hinted at a devastating truth about Emily. A truth I was not ready to face. I refused to believe it at first. I wanted to dismiss it as a cruel prank. But deep down, something told me I could not ignore it. I had to know the truth. I had to uncover just how deep this betrayal ran. Lisa and I had always seemed like a strong couple. We built a stable life together, one that others envied. Our home was in a peaceful neighborhood, and we had built a comfortable lifestyle through years of hard work. I worked in finance, while Lisa had a successful career in marketing. We were not wealthy, but we had enough to live well and give Emily a good life. From the outside, we looked like the perfect family. We attended neighborhood gatherings, went on family vacations, and celebrated holidays with relatives. But looking back, I could see that the signs of Lisa's deception had always been there. I had just been too blind, or too trusting, to see them. Lisa had always been protective of her phone. At first, I thought nothing of it. But over time, she became more secretive. She would take her phone with her everywhere, even into the bathroom. She would smile at texts she never shared with me. There were sudden business trips that seemed more frequent than before. I questioned them once or twice, but she always had a reasonable explanation, and I never pushed further. Emily had always looked more like Lisa. I never questioned it. Family members would sometimes joke about it, saying she had no resemblance to me, but I would laugh along. She has my mannerisms, I would say, dismissing any doubts before they could take root. But now, with the letter in my hands, those little details came rushing back, each one now carrying a weight I could not ignore. Had I been living a lie for 24 years? I felt sick. The very thought of it made my hands tremble. But I needed to know. I could not live with uncertainty. I decided to find out the truth once and for all. For days after receiving the anonymous letter, I tried to push it out of my mind, convincing myself that it was nothing but a cruel joke. A lie designed to tear apart my family. But the more I ignored it, the more it festered. The words were etched into my mind. Your wife has been cheating on you for 24 years. Your daughter is not yours. They replayed in my head like a haunting melody I could not escape. I told myself it was absurd. Elaine and I had built a life together, a marriage full of laughter, struggles, and shared memories. We had watched our daughter, Lily, grow from a giggling baby into a bright and kind young woman. I had held her tiny hands when she took her first steps, wiped away her tears after scraped knees, and cheered her on at every school play, every achievement. She was my world. And yet, a nagging voice inside me whispered, what if it was true? I began noticing things I had never paid attention to before. Elaine had always been protective of certain details about her past. She would avoid deep discussions about our early years together, brushing aside questions about old boyfriends or certain friendships. If Lily ever asked about her family history for a school project, Elaine would deflect, redirecting the conversation or offering vague answers. It had never seemed suspicious before, just unimportant. But now, every little evasion, every moment of hesitation, felt like puzzle pieces clicking into place. The doubts consumed me. I tried to push them aside, telling myself it was ridiculous to question my wife after 2 decades of marriage. But they clung to me like a shadow, creeping into every interaction. I found myself studying Elaine when she spoke, looking for cracks in her words, searching for hidden truths in her expressions. Was she hiding something, or was my mind playing tricks on me? Then there was Lily. Every time I looked at her, an ache formed deep in my chest. She had always been my daughter. That was an indisputable fact. I had spent countless nights rocking her to sleep when she was a baby, teaching her how to ride a bike, comforting her after bad dreams. I had been there for every milestone, every moment. And yet, the letter had planted a poisonous seed of doubt. I needed answers. The uncertainty was unbearable. So, I did something I never thought I would do. I ordered a paternity test. The kit arrived in an unmarked envelope, as if carrying a secret too heavy to reveal. My hands trembled as I followed the instructions. I swabbed my cheek, then Lily's, feeling a wave of guilt wash over me. What kind of father does this? What if the results shattered everything? The waiting period felt endless. Every interaction with Lily became a torment. I forced myself to act normal, to smile and joke as if nothing had changed. But inside, I was unraveling. I started losing sleep, lying awake at night with thoughts spiraling out of control. What if I was not her father? What if my entire life had been built on a lie? And worse, what if Elaine had known all along? Then the results arrived. My heart pounded as I held the envelope, my fingers tightening around it until my knuckles turned white. I debated for hours whether to open it, afraid of what the truth would be. But there was no going back now. I tore it open, scanning the page with blurry vision. My breath hitched as I read the conclusion. Probability of paternity, 0%. I dropped the paper. The world around me faded, replaced by a crushing weight pressing down on my chest. It was as if the ground beneath me had disappeared, leaving me suspended in a void of disbelief and agony. Lily was not mine. The truth was there in black and white, undeniable, irreversible. Every moment, every memory, every bond one had cherished, it all shattered in an instant. But the worst part was knowing that Elaine had carried this secret for 24 years. She had looked me in the eyes, shared a home with me, slept beside me every night, all while hiding the fact that the daughter I loved more than anything was never mine to begin with. A new emotion surged through me, rage. This was not just a betrayal. This was something deeper, something cruel. She had stolen years from me, lied every single day for more than 2 decades. And now, I was left holding the broken pieces of a life that was never truly mine. I clenched my fists, my vision darkening with anger. I had spent years giving Elaine my trust, my loyalty, my devotion. She had repaid me with deception. This was not just about uncovering the truth anymore. This was about making sure she answered for it. For hours I sat in silence, staring at the test results as the truth sank in. My mind replayed every moment, every anniversary, every quiet night Elaine and I had spent together as a couple. The betrayal stretched far beyond infidelity. It was a theft of my very identity as a father. The rage inside me burned hotter with each passing second. I needed answers. I needed to hear her say it out loud. That evening, I waited. Elaine walked through the front door, smiling as if nothing had changed. She called out my name, but I did not respond. Instead, I sat at the dining table, the test results laid out in front of me like a silent accusation. When she entered the room, her smile faltered. She saw the papers. The blood drained from her face. I finally spoke, my voice hollow. "How long have you known?" Elaine did not answer immediately. Her lips parted, but no words came. I watched her eyes dart toward the test results. There was no shock, no denial, just fear. That was all the confirmation I needed. How? My voice was calm, but beneath the surface, I was seething. She swallowed hard, her hands trembling as she pulled out a chair and sat across from me. I did not mean for this to happen. I scoffed. Did not mean for what? To lie to me for 24 years? To make me believe I had a daughter when you knew the truth all along? Tears welled in her eyes, but they did nothing to soften my fury. I had spent over 2 decades giving her my love, my trust, my devotion, and this was how she repaid me? I found out a few months after she was born, she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I had doubts, so I did a test myself. But by then you already loved her. I thought it would not matter. I gritted my teeth. It would not matter? The chair scraped against the floor as I stood abruptly. It would not matter that I have spent my life raising another man's child? That I have lived a lie because you decided for me that I did not deserve to know the truth? Tears spilled down her cheeks. I was scared, okay? I was young. I made a mistake, but I did not want to lose you. I knew you would leave if you found out. I shook my head. So you lied. Every day. Every year. And you let me build my entire life around that lie. Elaine broke down into sobs, but my sympathy was gone. I was no longer the man who had once adored her, trusted her with every part of me. That version of me had died the moment I read those results. But the worst was yet to come. Taking a deep breath, I pressed forward. Who is her real father? Elaine hesitated. And in that hesitation, I saw another secret lurking beneath the surface. My stomach twisted. Elaine. My voice was cold. Who is he? She wiped her tears away, her entire body trembling now. You know him. A sickening realization crept over me. My fingers curled into fists at my sides. Tell me. She hesitated again. Then, with a voice so small it was barely audible, she whispered his name. I felt the world shift around me. The air became heavy, suffocating. It was someone I had trusted. Someone I had let into my home. It was my best friend. A sharp, bitter laugh escaped me, one that held no humor. The cruelty of it all was unbearable. The man I had considered my closest friend had fathered my wife's child. And they had both carried on as if nothing had happened, watching me dote on Lily, celebrating holidays and birthdays together, knowing all along that the truth would destroy me. I turned away from her, needing space, needing air. My hands clenched into fists as the weight of 24 years of deception crushed down on me. You disgust me, I finally said. My voice was even, but inside, I was raging. Elaine sobbed harder, but I was done listening. She had taken everything from me, my faith, my love, my sense of self. But I would not let her take my dignity. She had stolen years from me. Now, it was my turn to make her pay. Elaine kept calling my name, but I no longer heard her. Every sound seemed to fade into the background, drowned by the deafening roar of betrayal in my mind. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from a deep and overwhelming anger. A decade-long relationship had been torn apart in a single night. I stood there in the living room, feeling the weight of the truth crash down on me like a ton of bricks. My wife, my partner, the woman I had shared my life with for so long, had deceived me. She had betrayed me with someone I considered a friend, someone I had trusted. The layers of lies had built up so high, I could barely breathe under the weight of it all. And yet, in that suffocating silence, the one thing I felt most was the profound loss of the life I thought I had. I needed to leave. I had to get away from her, from the house, from everything that reminded me of this life that no longer felt real. I didn't want to face her, but I couldn't remain in that place, pretending that everything was okay. Without another word, I turned and walked out of the house, my feet moving on their own as I headed for the car. The cold night air hit my face, biting against my skin, but it did nothing to numb the pain. My thoughts were a hurricane, swirling, crashing into each other. I pulled out my phone, my hand still shaking, and found his number, my best friend's number. The man I had trusted, the man who had been there for me through everything. But now, he was the man who had torn apart everything I had built. The man who had been sneaking around with my wife for God knows how long. My heart sank as I pressed the call button. The phone rang twice before he picked up, his voice warm and casual, like everything was fine. Hey man, what's up? The normalcy of it all made my stomach churn. How could he be so calm? How could he act like everything was the same when I had just uncovered the ugliest truth of my life? I could barely breathe. My mind raced as I struggled to control the storm of emotions. Then I spoke the two words that would change everything. I know. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. A silence so thick I could feel it pressing against my chest. I could almost hear his brain working overtime, trying to figure out how to talk his way out of this, trying to cover up the mess they had made. But nothing he said could undo what had already been done. The moment I spoke those words, there was no going back. He knew that. Finally, he spoke, his voice strained. Listen, I didn't let him finish. I ended the call and threw the phone onto the passenger seat. The silence that followed felt suffocating. A part of me wanted to drive to his house right then, demand answers, confront him, but I knew that wasn't the answer. Nothing would make this better. I couldn't sleep. I drove aimlessly for hours, my mind spinning in circles. Images of Elaine and him together played over and over in my mind. Every moment I had spent with them both now felt like a sick joke. The birthday parties, the vacations, the holidays, every memory felt false, tainted by the knowledge of their betrayal. But then my thoughts turned to Lily, my daughter. She was the one person who was still innocent in all of this. She didn't deserve to be dragged into this mess, but she was a part of it. She had been raised believing that Elaine and I were this perfect couple, that we were a team. And now, everything was upended. The world she knew would never be the same again. As the hours ticked by, I knew I had to go home. I knew I had to face Elaine. But I wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared to hear her try to justify the unthinkable. So, I stayed in the car until the first rays of daylight began to pierce the darkness. When I finally returned home, I walked into the house, the place that once felt like a sanctuary but now felt like a prison. Elaine was sitting at the kitchen table, her eyes swollen from crying. She looked up at me, and for a moment, I saw the woman I had once loved so deeply. But that was before the truth. Please, she said, her voice trembling. Let's just talk. You don't have to do this. I could feel the anger rising inside me, but I held it in check. There was nothing to talk about. Nothing she could say would change anything. The truth had already been laid bare, and there was no room for excuses. I have already called a lawyer, I said, my voice cold. Her face drained of color. She tried to reach for me, but I stepped back. There was no touching, no fixing this. Not anymore. No, she whispered. Please don't do this. I love you. But I didn't let her finish. You do not love me. You love yourself. You love your lies. The words felt like venom as they escaped my mouth. You have no idea what you've done to me. To us. I will never forgive you for this. She collapsed into tears, her sobs echoing through the house, but I couldn't find it in myself to care. I wasn't the same man anymore. She had taken that from me. The divorce proceedings began almost immediately. I took every step to make sure she felt the weight of her actions. I exposed the affair to friends and family, making sure they knew the truth. Elaine begged me to reconsider, to let her make amends, but there was no coming back from this. I could not look at her the same way. I could not ignore the lies. My lawyer was relentless, making sure every asset, every property we owned was scrutinized. The marriage I had spent years building was torn apart, and I was going to make sure she felt the consequences of her betrayal. As for Lily, I told her the truth in the gentlest way I could. She was devastated. She had always believed her mother and I were the perfect couple, and now that reality was shattered. She didn't deserve any of this. But I reassured her, no matter what, I was her father and nothing would change that. Elaine had done irreparable damage to our family, but Lily was still my daughter. And I would do anything to protect her. When the divorce was final, I felt a strange sense of relief. But it was fleeting. The wounds would never heal completely. Elaine had stolen my happiness, my trust, my future. But now, at least, I was free to begin a new chapter. I was no longer the man she had manipulated. I was someone else. Someone stronger. Someone who knew the price of loyalty and love. And I would make sure it was never taken from me again. If you found this story compelling, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and press the bell icon for more intense and shocking stories.